Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chris of Digital Realm. Welcome back to Live at Lunch. Live at Lunch. We're currently reading the book Tools of Titans, and we're going to cover the chapter with, drum roll please, Chris Young. Chris Young is a chef out of Seattle. So Chris Young, we're covering the chapter with Chris Young. Let's give some quick Digital Realm updates. What's going on? So with Digital Realm, we just dropped the live feed, how to set up your live feed video in our one of our courses for our members. So if you don't have your digitalrealm.com membership, make sure you go to digitalrem.com and get your membership, and go to the membership area where you can get access to that video in the video course for live production. So you'll have access to that. How we what software we're using, how to use it. Also we just dropped a new consulting video going over what was the subject? Going over 79% errors on people's credit report. More than 79% of people have errors on their credit report, and again, some things that people don't know. So again, at the end, we show you what you can do about that. But go check that out at Digital Realm Consulting IG page, or just go to digitalrem.com and it'll be there as well. So you go to the consulting area. Boom. That's what we did there. We are now starting to record our Live at Lunch, so we will be dropping that into the Digital Realm on the Digital Realm website as well. So these recordings can be accessed on digitalrem.com as well as YouTube also. So let's just hop right in this. Chris Young, right? One of the first questions Tim Ferriss asked Chris Young is, what would you put on a billboard? And Chris Young replies, it all worked out anyway. I'd place it outside of a high school. High school was not a great time for me. So again, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, it all worked out anyway. Like, don't stress the small stuff. The thing you're going through at this current time, it's not the end of the world. Just continue to push on. Continue to push on, and it's gonna work out. We've heard that before in the book, or in previous chapters from multiple people, right? This is the quote, and then we'll read the story and then go into our perspective on there, right? The interesting jobs are the ones you make up. The interesting jobs are the ones you make up, right? Not the ones you get hired for, the ones you actually create, right? Here's the story. His dad was a very successful entrepreneur. Gave Chris advice when he was a freshman or sophomore in high school. I distinctly remember him saying not to worry about what I was going to do because the job I was going to do hadn't even been invented yet. The interesting jobs are the ones you make up. That's something I certainly hope to instill in my son. Don't worry about what your job is going to be. Do the things that you're interested in, and if you do them really well, you're going to find a way to temper them with some good business opportunities, right? So again, the jobs that you're, if you're in high school, wherever, the jobs that you're destined for probably aren't even made yet. They're not even roles yet, because as the new technology rolls out, as new things happen, as the industry changes, jobs change. So I'm gonna read that again. The job I was going to do hadn't even been invented yet. The interesting jobs are the ones you make up, right? That's a really good one, right? So this one's a pretty interesting story, right? So I'm gonna preface it a little bit. So just think of if there was a celebrity that you really admired, that's in your industry. You're like, man, if I could talk to them, what question would I ask them, right? Or if I could talk to them, what would I say? Whatever the case may be. And this story kind of goes back into a previous story. Now I'll explain how it goes back into a previous story from another interview. All right, he says, this made me smile. I met Heston once in early 2000s at a book signing inside of the culinary school in San Francisco. I sheepishly approached him and asked, What is your favorite way to cook beans? I'm embarrassed to ask, but I have a lot of trouble getting them right. He perked up, looked me straight in the eye, and said, people don't know how complex beans can be. Ask perhaps a dozen clarifying questions, then proceeded to give me a 5-minute masterclass in cooking beans. I've been a fanboy ever since. So again, this ties back to what I said before, like being able to have the courage enough to ask the dumb questions. Because sometimes asking the dumb questions leads to the goal. It depends on who you're asking. They'll start to spill all of this knowledge to you that you didn't even, you didn't necessarily ask for, but share all of this extra knowledge to you that's like, man, that makes it super valuable. Now, not only do I know how to cook beans properly, but then I also learn how to do this or do that and do this or do that and how to connect the dots. So sometimes, like in the previous lesson, asking the dumb questions is the best thing you can do, right? All right. All right, this one's interesting too. He called this the accidental Jedi mind trick, right? It was accidental at the time. So the accidental Jedi mind trick, we have to go through the whole story, so it's going to be a little bit of reading, right? Chris got his first line cook job by accidentally appealing to the chef's ego. He had been staging or interning at and wanted to make the jump to a full timer. So he was working at Will. In essence, he's working at Will Bellicke's kitchen. He's been interning there, but he wants to be full time. He has the desire to be full time. So he goes to talk to the manager, the boss, whatever. But William Becky, the head chef, right? At the end of the service, William was really gracious. He sat down with me in the dining room, and he had a glass of wine. He offered me a glass. He said, this after he asked. He said, now's probably not really a great time. I'm not sure if I have work for you. Being very earnest, I said, I totally understand. Is there anybody in town you'd recommend would be a good place for me to work? I'm really committed to doing this. I really want to see what it's about, right? And what I didn't realize at the time was that was probably the perfect thing to have said to William, because William had an enormous ego, and he was just not going to be capable of bringing himself to say anybody else in town was any good at all. So you could just see him sort of sputtering. Wells, really, there's no one. I think I'm probably the right person to teach you. So why don't you come back Tuesday? So essentially, he played a Jedi mind trick, leveraging, the head chef's ego. Like, the head chef thinks he's the best head chef in town, across town, probably in the world. So when he asked for a full-time position on that head chef's team, the head chef's like, well, at first he's like, well, we really don't have I don't know where we can fit you in. I wouldn't call it excuses, but I don't know where we could fit you in. And you could probably think back to even if you had a job interview and be like, oh, well, you're overqualified or whatever the case may be, where they start to give the excuses or whatever. Then he kind of went back and was like, well, that's understandable. I'm overqualified. You don't have room on your team, so on and so forth. Where would you recommend that I go? Because I'm really passionate about doing this, and I'm gonna get it done. If it's not under you, it has to be under somebody else, because it's gonna get done, right? That played on the head chef's ego. Like, well, I can refer him to somebody else and lose somebody who's really passionate about this industry and have a great apprentice under me, or send him to somebody else. But then I'd have to step back and be like, well, who's as good as me? So it's kind of like playing on his ego. Like, it was an accidental Jedi mind trick, as he said, that ended up working out for him, where the guy was like, well, I'm gonna hire you. And again, you could listen to the conversation. Starting the conversation, he's like, I don't have any room. By the end of the conversation, he's like, well, come back Tuesday. I'm hiring you. Like, so again, Just like understanding a little bit of psychology really took him a long way with that one, and that was on accident, as he said. Hold the standard. Heston no longer yelled at people. He just signaled disappointment in other ways. He really pushed you, the team, everyone else to strive for excellence all the time, right? So, I mean, I know people probably watch these shows that are on TV where the head chef is yelling at people, like tell them they could do better, hurry up, blah blah blah. But he's like he approaches it differently now. Like he just gives a look of like disappointment. Like I'm not gonna yell at you, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna just look at you like you could do better, and you could do better, so on and so forth. So I'm gonna read the story and then get into why that's important, right? So the order came for quail jelly, and I saw that they weren't fully set up. I tried to float I'm not sure how to say this, langoustine cream on top anyway, and sent them out to the past, knowing that they weren't perfect. Those things came back like a boomerang. Heston just came around the corner holding them in his hand and just goes, "Chris." He's looking at me and he's looking at the dish, and he's looking at me and he's looking at the dish, and said, "No chance." Puts it back. I just remember the withering look, like if I ever did that again, don't show up again. I remember the lesson because he said, "We can do something else. If it's not ready, we're not going to send it out. I just hope they don't notice that it's not that good. We'll fix it. We'll do something else. Don't try to slip by something that is below standard. You only need the lesson once. That wasn't the standard, and you know what the standard is. Hold your standard, ask for help, fix it, do whatever's necessary, but don't cheat." Again, and that's where we're going to end as far as all the highlights. Hold your standard at the end of the day. Have integrity, hold your standard, hold your morals, hold your values, and that goes across the board, not only with in his instance, the chefs, sending out food, and he knew it wasn't good, but he sent it out anyway, and the head chef came back like, "What is this?" And didn't yell at him or anything, just kind of looked at it, looked at the food, looked at the food, like, really? And at the end of the day, I really find value in this because it kind of reminds me back in childhood, and this is going more personal, but there's a time where you grow from being, spanked as a child to being, reprimanded in different ways, put it like that. And I remember the first time I was reprimanded in a different way, just looked at like I'm disappointed in you. And that hurt me more than any other whooping I ever had in my life. Cause it's like, at least with a whooping, it's over, and then you go on about your day, and forget about it. Like, okay, that's done. But when somebody kind of looks at like this example, looks at you, look at this, look at you, look at the dish, you in your head know you could be doing better. So in your head, you're going through all the things that you could be doing better, all the things that you can be doing that had made that situation different. So you end up dwelling on that for the rest of the day, just thinking about man, I wasn't holding my standard, because I know my standard is a lot higher. I should have held my standard, and now it's really bothering me, right? So sometimes you don't have to be yelled at. Just sometimes it's just giving a look like, man, and letting it be known like I'm disappointed, and moving on is more impactful, especially when an adult or somebody who is at least of age, who's not a toddler, but somebody who's an adult and who understands. Is like, that's more detrimental than anything, because it's kind of like, now I have to play this in my mind of how I could have did better, or how I couldn't have did better, or what I could have done differently, right? So again, I think a lot of people, I don't want to say that, but we're just gonna wrap that up there. At the end of the day, that goes into business as well. Business, even your industry, whatever you're doing, that goes into anything. Hold your standards. Keep your standards high. If you're selling shirts, make sure you're giving quality. If you're telling somebody you're gonna be there, be there on time. Like, hold your standards so your brand and what you're offering holds up to that standard, so you're a reliable source to that standard. So your brand is known for being reliable. Your brand is known for being helpful, and so on and so forth. Those are usually, to me, tend to be the best brands because they know how to hold their standards. They know how to maintain their standards. If you, just like a car, like, you don't want no car that doesn't hold up. It like doesn't have a reputation of being very durable. Doesn't have a reputation of holding its standards, like having the best engine where you don't have to take it in the shop all the time. You want it to hold its standards. If it don't hold its standards, you're not gonna buy that car. But again, this is a quick example. I'm gonna wrap that up here. But with that being said, do that one thing that takes you closer to your goals today. Do that one thing that takes you closer to your goals, and y'all have a blessed day. Later, y'all. Peace.